Laura is a digital marketer with 7 years experience, mainly focusing on helping brands grow organically. She's worked with a bunch of tech startups and recently built a price comparison site for the UK market from the ground up with little to no resources, which is great. She likes to call herself a full stack SEO because she handles everything from branding and UX to leading projects from start to finish. She's now taken a further step and started exploring the idea of getting qualified as a mentor within her industry, and is looking for more purpose-driven marketing projects that align with her ethos and life values. That sounds awesome. And she's also got a personal project called Searchpedia, where she plans to showcase free resources for search marketers. So that sounds really awesome. And I'm sure we'll hear about that a bit more. So yeah, welcome, Laura, and welcome to Search with Sean Live.
Thanks, Sean. Well, thanks for having me. That was a very nice intro. And yes, you will hear from me, especially when it comes to Searchpedia, because as the topic will reveal, I have recently been made redundant. So now I have all the time in the world to dedicate to my personal projects, which is amazing. So I wanted to sort of just get into this topic a little bit more. And I think in a way is sort of the best time to do it. First of all, because I've been made redundant twice in my career as an SEO, and secondly, because unfortunately it happens quite a bit during the month of December for some reason. We all know that it's been sort of a trend, I guess, for the past couple of years. A very nice one, but unfortunately something that we deal with quite a lot in the digital marketing industry and tech. Now, my presentation is called Bouncing Back because I like to see the sort of positive aspects of life in general, and whatever happens, I like to have my head up high and perhaps help the people around me that are going through the same kind of scenarios, and with resources, with a bit of mentorship on the side, and just a kind word sometimes. So you've been made redundant, hopefully not, but if you have, now what? What are the kind of next steps when it comes to dealing with redundancy? Now, I hope you're gonna appreciate my cats. I've got a couple of cats around my presentation. Funnily enough, none of them are mine. My cat is not in the presentation, which is a bit of a weird one, given that I've got like 10 million pictures of her. So yeah, sorry, Leshan, you didn't make it, girl. Well, first of all, I think it'll be really good to focus on the topic at hand and kind of see the big picture before we go a bit more personal. I think redundancy in the tech industry, and particularly in SEO and digital marketing, is quite predominant at the moment. Only today, funnily enough, I've actually interacted with someone over LinkedIn that has been recently made redundant, and I was like, oh, cool. So it has begun. All of the open for work banners are going to be showcased on LinkedIn, and sort of we'll see probably a very, very big list of professionals in that kind of boat. Now, what is important, I think, is to sort of look over the whole personal aspect of it, which is quite hard when, you know, I suppose your livelihood is affected, and perhaps your self-worth and your confidence, but it is really important to see the bigger pictures, or else I feel like it's hard to not take it personally. I would say most of the times it's not personal. Now, if it is personal, that's a different kettle of fish. We're not going to explore that today. But I think it is important as a professional to get personal with your story and explore the ways you can rebuild, and why not perhaps even thrive. Now, if we look at the timeline on a macro level, since 2022 up to this year, you can see a bit of a sort of like growing trend into layoffs in tech industry. Now, obviously, not all of us are being made redundant from Twitter or Meta or Cisco or the big players. Some of us come from like smaller companies, sometimes startups, sometimes companies that would probably have, I don't know, less than 10, 20 employees, where the general feel is a little bit different than being, I suppose, laid off by Meta, for example, where I understand, you still work within your team and you get to build that rapport, but there are different processes put in place. Whereas I believe that when you work for a smaller company, it's a learning curve for both of you. It's a bit of a weird statement, but I suppose they're learning how to make people redundant, and you're also like sort of learning how to receive that with a pinch of salt. Now, I'm not going to get into the timeline of the tech layouts because, to be fair, it's quite depressing, and yeah, it's unfortunate. It's the reality of today. But I will be focusing a bit more on the bigger picture. Now, when you make someone redundant, I can't really think about, actual reasons apart from, I suppose, the general business needs, right? Where, I don't know, you didn't make the cut with your budget that year, or you didn't reach your targets, or you need to do restructuring, or you figure out that your investors are no longer in the picture, and so on, where unfortunately the people that are going to be affected are your employees. So I understand that it's quite a challenging thing for businesses, but at the same time, I think it could be done in a way where when you let go someone, you do it with empathy. You do it with empathy, and you realize that behind that role is someone with a family to support, with years of experience in, or maybe they just started, I don't know, but a professional in the making sometimes that could be easily impacted by such a decision. And you need to think about someone who doesn't necessarily think about a job they lost, but a career, which I think it's a bit more personal. Now, a little bit about coping and recovery. What I found helped me during this process was sort of joining a couple of groups, support groups. Our industry, especially the SEOs, I feel like we've done a very good job in connecting over different platforms, either with Slack, with channels like Women in Tech SEO, Indeed, so neurodivergence in SEO, and even like paid channels like marketing. Now it's on Discord actually, but there's another channel called Mostly Marketing that has been proven really resourceful when it came to these kind of things. And apart from just talking to professionals, I think it was very important to look inwards a bit and think about my mental health. Now, what I've discovered is that for your mental health, talking is the best thing when it comes to being made redundant. I know a lot of people, they take it a bit with shame because they make it about themselves. They think it's personal. Well, again, I repeat, probably 9 in 10 is not personal. So talking with anyone, friends, mentors, family, even a therapist, it's very important. And sort of just keep that routine that you had while you were working. Like, even if you're not employed anymore, make sure you don't slack. All right. So, for example, if you feel like lying in one morning, you don't have to feel guilty about it, obviously. But I think it's important to have a very similar routine to the one you had when you were employed. So stay active. Like, if you used to wake up at 8 o'clock, have your brekkie, have your coffee, go for a run, don't change that. Like, business as usual, even though you're not employed anymore, kind of thing. Now, the next thing that I think is related to keeping up your mental health is setting up goals. I'm going to talk a bit about this a little bit later in the game, because this is something that I've recently started exploring myself. I took part of this seminar with a very, very amazing professional on LinkedIn who does that for our industry, called Tasmin. And I realized how important it is to have these clear goals and refer to them when life changes, regardless if you're being made redundant or something else happens. And then I don't know exactly what this is, by the way. Here, magazine is a periodical. I think this was a lorem ipsum text that just stayed there in the presentation. But yeah, another really important thing I think is updating your talent profile. So now you've got all the time in the world. Like I said, I've started building Searchpedia the week I was made redundant. Like, it was in the making, to be fair, but it was just like the best sort of scenario in that sense. I was like, okay, so I don't have a job now, but I've got my personal project, so I can refer to it. I know that it's relevant for my industry, and I know that it's going to keep my brain and soul involved, you know? So yeah, when it comes to updating your talent profile, I think updating your CV and LinkedIn profile is probably like step number one. There's so many like free CV writing services out there that you can access online if, I don't know, you're not satisfied with your CV or you'd like to try something new. So yeah, we've got a resources section at the end of this presentation where you can actually find a couple of links. I think another really important thing is networking. So reach out to your colleagues, because probably most of the times it's not just you being let go. There are other people in your team or your department that unfortunately have been let go at the same time. So I think keeping that relationship active is quite important. Perhaps, you know, I know in the beginning it's probably mostly about what just happened and venting and other kind of like ways of getting it out, you know. But I think just being present in these people's lives is amazing, and keep that up, really. Now, another thing that I feel like is really important is to attend events. So even if you're not working anymore, and probably most of the times the events that you would have been gone to were supported by the company, I think it is important to keep that up, regardless if you're going representing yourself or a company. And then the last one, which I think is quite, I suppose, you know, self-explanatory, is use this time to upskill. So, I mean, with AI happening everywhere, because I think we're experiencing an AI fatigue at this point, but I think it's so important to keep up and learn new tools at the end of the day, because regardless of the industry that you're in, really, this is something that's going to be part of it anyway. So just stay ahead of the game, really. And then keep an eye on your finances, which again, I've got no lorem ipsum text here, so sorry about that. Do you have any questions so far, or can I go on with my presentation?
No, it's a great presentation. I mean, I just agree with you, the fact that, you know, whatever the situation, whether you're still in a role or whether you've been made redundant, you should continue to expand your skill set as much as you can when you get the time, because if something bad happens like this, at least you've got those to, you know, fall back on perhaps, or you can then start to expand that if you've got more time. And, you know, if you have got that desire, then yeah, start these personal projects like this for me, or like your website. One, it may interest you, but two, also, yeah, you know, you're only going to be better equipped when you're going out to find new jobs that you know, your new possible job may find that really kind of impressive, and obviously puts you in the front seat in terms of like trying to get a new job. So it wouldn't be time wasted. So yeah, that's it.
Yeah. So I'm going to go into goals a bit, only because, as I mentioned previously, this is something a little bit life-changing for me in this sense. So even before I was made redundant, I think probably around 2 months prior to being made redundant, I had this sort of, let's call it inspiration, to look into mentorship and sort of just reframe a bit how I'm looking at my career in the long term, because I love what I do, and I always have. Like, everyone who knows me and has worked with me, they know I'm quite passionate about the topic, and to the point that they call me a nerd, and they start yawning and doing all these like funny gimmicks when I start talking. But at the same time, I've also got to that point where I was like, right, I love it, but something's missing. I don't know if that's something that most people experience or not, but when it hit me, I realized that I wasn't feeling the same drive and satisfaction after a project. So I didn't want to lose that, and I sort of started exploring other avenues. And when I got into mentorship, I've been doing it for a very long time, to be fair, for this volunteering organization in Romania, but on and off sort of thing. So I never did it every month kind of thing where I could build myself up as a mentor. But I realized I was doing it in SEO with the people I worked with every time. And regardless if it was help with a project, or help with a salary negotiation, or help with how techniques to speak to your manager, or things that we would sort of encounter in our career at the same time, sort of thing, got to that point where I was like, I'm doing it without realizing it, and I love it, but at the same time it does take quite a lot out of you. So yeah, that sort of directed me to this like course online. So one of the women that, as I mentioned before, she's actually offering these things professionally. She did a goal setting accelerator. So pretty much a week in which we've met every day for around 45 minutes at the end of our work day, and just spoke about these little, let's say, exercises that she sent us to do in the mornings. And they were very like simple things at the end of the day, like journaling, for example, or just write down a couple of things, but you realize how hard it is to get into that mindset to actually do it. And then once you actually get to do it, you realize how important they are to your career, and figure out how do you get what's actually important for you, and how do you get from A to B without major sacrifices, and just yeah. So I'm just going to talk about setting up goals and how I think this simple framework can really help you set goals that are achievable and realistic after you've been made redundant. And I've split it in a couple of like timelines, let's say quarters if you like. I put immediate goals. So if you're struggling to process what happened to you, get out of bed, just get back on the horse and start living, I think you should focus on these immediate goals. And I think things like updating your CV and just talk to people, notify a network that you're available now, and sort of mostly talk about your achievements rather than your skill set. I think it's a bit more important. Then I thought about short-term goals, 1 to 3 months. Again, these are literally just what I think will work for me. But the way I see it is, especially in our industry, I think it's so important to identify those target industries or the roles you want to focus on. So for example, let's say you've done I don't know, project management in SEO, or you've done content SEO and you want to keep on the same sort of path. I think it'd be very important to kind of look right now what's available on the market, which industries are most likely to invest into the big bucks, into these kind of roles, and just go for that. Now, obviously, if they don't match with what you've done before or what you'd like to do, don't despair. I mean, it's not always the case. You can always, sit back and kind of wait for, obviously, if the finances are in order, just sit back and kind of choose, what you want to do at the end of the day. Because I've also found out that a lot of people, they tend to just jump on the next available role when it's with absolutely no time to sort of grieve your previous life, your previous team, your previous routine. And it can get from bad to worse. Sometimes not, sometimes it works, but in my experience, it didn't work that way. So I think it's really important to give yourself that time to sort of explore other avenues. Again, another short-term goal, I think it'd be important to enroll in some online courses to boost your skills. We've already spoke about that, and at the end of this presentation we actually have a list of a couple of relevant ones. And then maybe set up a target to apply to, I don't know, let's say 10 jobs every week. And don't necessarily go over, but if you obviously don't find the 10 jobs that you like, don't just apply willy-nilly, because that's just waste of time, really. But it's good to have a target in that sense. So let's say 3 jobs. I want to apply for 3 jobs this week. So I'm going to be doing this, this, and this, Not to mention, I don't know if you've noticed, and I don't know when's the last time you interviewed for a job role in SEO, but especially when you're in a more senior role, they want a lot from you with an application. So you'll have to do like 6-7 steps application where you meet with so many people in that team. You've got to do tests, you got to do quizzes, you got to do pretty much bend over backwards to sort of get to the stage where an offer has been made. So applications take time, so don't overwork yourself in that sense, and only apply for things that you really want. Like, don't just, as I said, apply willy-nilly because, oh my god, I don't have a job now, I need to get a job ASAP. So when it comes to long-term goals, I put 6 to 12 months. Again, don't quote me on that. I think that's sort of the plan for myself, is to build a personal project or portfolio if you haven't already. If you have, keep updating it like as much as you can. Add all your relevant qualifications there. If you've just, let's say your Google Analytics expired, your certification expired this year, do it now ASAP. Have it there updated, have all of it available for your next employer. I also put, again, attend industry events to expand your network, and secure a new role that aligns with your goals. I think that's like the last bit. Hopefully it's not going to take a year to do it, but I feel like you have to be permissive with your timeline and actually sort of, again, go for it, what you want. Don't just accept anything, really. And this is more of a disclaimer here. I said dream big but keep it real. I feel like this, when you're being made redundant, especially from a tech role, our skills are quite transferable in general. Like in SEO, for example, you get so many things. Like you get UX, you get, obviously you're not a UX whiz, but when you deliver SEO, you automatically deliver UX as well. I know some people wouldn't agree with me, but in my experience, you need to understand it. And I feel like to get back on the topic, when you have so many transferable skills, you tend to like visualize yourself in different roles. And you're like, what if, I don't know, I'm passionate about tech SEO. What if I learn how to, I don't know, build websites? The next best thing, Some people could be extremely talented in that sense, and they could pick up very easily codes. Some, they're probably more skilled with words or publishing, really relevant content. So it's important to sort of like keep that dream on your level. Like, ideally, it's nice to explore and kind of like, know a little bit of everything, but then you also risk to be a jack of all trades and a master of none. So sort of like try to keep it real. And then once you know what you want to do, just break that into smaller actionable steps. And again, no pressure. Don't put pressure on you, because nothing's really working under pressure. So that's my 2 pence when it comes to setting up goals after redundancy. I think they're quite easy, to be fair. I mean, in theory, but hopefully, it'll prove to be useful for someone. Now, when it comes to resources, I was positive here and I put the only ways up. So I'm just going to emphasize on this bit here. Stay curious and open to change, and you'll find a new place in the digital future. Like, I know things are changing. As I said, there's an AI fatigue coming, happening at the moment. Everyone's talking about AI. AI is absolutely everywhere. And it's scary sometimes, but at the same time, the minute you learn how to like integrate in your day-to-day work, it just becomes exciting, and you become more relevant for future employees. And if you want to stay in digital marketing, you gotta do it. It's as simple as that. So then on the resource pages, I've got a nice, I think this is a Norwegian forest cat. I think such an adorable cat. Anyway, we've got a couple of resources that are specific to UK, but as I told Sean in the beginning of our conversation, I think obviously if you're watching us from a different country, there are 100% resources, similar resources in your home country. It's where you can explore and find out a bit more about your redundancy rights. I think it's really important to sort of look into it when you're going through redundancy, because there might be things that you might be missing or your employer has had missed, sometimes purely accidental, human error, sometimes not. So I think it's really important to sort of like, learn about your rights when it comes to redundancies. For example, I found a very cool, interesting thing in the UK. I spoke to someone at the job centre, and they were even like saying that we've got access to these courses. So there's a budget for offering free courses for professionals that want to like sort of use this time while they're looking for a job to specialize in something or add a different certification to their portfolio and so on, which again, these are things that it's important you know about, because you might be ending up like despairing and let's say I want to requalify as something else, and you're thinking, but I can't afford it, and then bam, you find out that you can actually do it for free. That's amazing, isn't it? So yeah, look into it, and you won't regret it 100%. When it comes to free courses, especially for SEO, there are so many out there. My personal favorite one is TechSEO by Blue Array. It takes quite a bit, but it is amazing in the sense that even if you've been in the industry for quite a bit or you look to learn a bit about now, it's still explained in a nice sort of pace and in like bite-sized information where you can learn quite easily. And it's a good refresher course for anyone who's been in the industry for a while. So yeah, check it out. And they give you an accreditation at the end. You've got the Google SEO fundamentals on Coursera. It's completely free. I think the next enrolling is in February this year. So if you want to do that, don't miss it out. And then you've got tool-related academies and skill shops and stuff like the Ahrefs one. You've got the Moz. You've got the free JavaScript SEO by Sidebulb, which is amazing. You've got SEMrush, I think, Academy as well. I don't know if it's Academy. I think it's got another name. And then the Google Skill Shop, the free SEO fundamentals. The HubSpot Academy as well is a very cool one. I've actually done most of these prior, or just like in my sort of learning time, because I've always allocated time in my day for learning. So I was fortunate enough to do that in my job so far. So I actually recommend all of them. And when it comes to job search, I'm not going to bore you with Indeed and Total Jobs and all these other websites that we know of, especially in the UK. There are a couple of more international ones where you can find jobs that are advertised worldwide. So some of them are for the US market, some of them are for Europe, some of them are for Asia, and this is the list here. I can obviously share the presentation after with you and you can explore it. But yeah, this one here, the 4 days a week IO one, is quite interesting because it only advertises jobs for 4 days a week, which is quite cool if you think about it. Because yeah, in our industry, I think a lot of us can agree that we can actually do our jobs in 4 days, rather than the 9 to 5 scenario where on Friday you end up playing Wordle and Super Mario or whatever. So yeah, and that's it about my presentation. I hope you liked it. I hope you're going to find something useful for yourself if you're going through redundancy. And if you are going through redundancy again, I'm really sorry, and it's not about you. It really isn't.